Welcome back. Although XHTML has many meaningful tags, it does not have enough to convey the meanings we are trying to give to our codes. To pass along additional meaning, we can use what we call the classes and IDs. IDs and classes have different rules about when and how they are used. For example, IDs can only be used once per page, while classes can be used as many times as you want on a page. Let us continue from where we stopped in the other lesson. Earlier, we have divided the content of our page into meaningful regions using our div tag. Like you can see, we have the first region, the second region, the third region, and the fourth region. And each region is surrounded by this div tag like you see here. Now let us insert our IDs into each of these regions. Let's go to the first region, the H1 region. We'll click on the H1, come down to this place. Then instead of clicking H1 as we did when we were inserting our div tag, we'll come down here and click on the div. This way, the whole of that region is highlighted. When this has been done, you see a column down at the bottom that says div ID. And in that column, you type your div ID. Here, let us give the first one header. Once that is done, we'll click anywhere else. Let's come to the second region. Come down here and click on div. You will notice that the whole of the second region is highlighted. Now we'll come down here, give this region an ID of content. Click inside or outside, anywhere else. Come to this third region, go down here, click on div to highlight the whole region. Give this region an ID of sidebar. Then come to the last one, click on the div and give this one an ID of footer. Now there is something very remarkable that I want us to take note of. Let us click on the first ID and come down here. You notice down here now that we have a div pound header or a div hashtag header. This is how IDs are identified. Whenever you see hash a name or pound sign a name, it shows you that that thing in question is an ID. Now let us switch to the code view to see how our IDs are written out in code. If we highlight our first region and switch over to code view, we can see from here the way our ID is written out in code, and this is actually it. Now let us switch back to the design view and go ahead in adding our classes. If we come down to this second region, it states here that the word independence needs to be identified everywhere it appears in my content. Let's see how many times the word independence appears in this our content. First, we have it here, 1. We have it here, 2. And we also have it here, 3. So the word independence appears 3 times on our page. And for each place where it appears, we are going to give it a class. So the class we are going to give it here will be the same class we'll give it here, and it will be the same class we'll give it here. Invariably, we'll be giving this word independence a class that will appear 3 times on this page. It just goes to adduce what we said earlier, that your IDs can only appear once on a page, while your classes can appear as many times on a page. So here we'll be having our class appear 3 times on this page and our ID once. This first region has an ID of header. We cannot use that ID header again on any part of this page. This second region has an ID of content. Here has an ID of sidebar, and here an ID of footer. Now let us see how we add classes. Let us go back to the code view of our first region. Here is our ID as we said earlier. Now there's something I want us to notice. If we copy this ID, go back to our design view, paste it on a fresh page. This is what we have here. Paste it twice. There's something I want us to take particular notice of. I want us to see how IDs are written and how classes are written. The way div is to ID is the way span is to classes. So if we want to, assuming we want to write a class here, we are not going to write the word div. Instead of using div, we are going to use what we call span. And instead of writing ID, we are going to write what we call class. So you can see very much that there is a similarity between the way IDs are written and the way classes are written. When you are writing a class, you simply change the word div to span and change the word ID to class, and every other thing remains the same. Let us go back to our page and let us put our word independent in classes. To do this, you use what we call a quick tag editor. Now let us add a class to our word independent. Let us add the class independent to this word independent. Like we said, we use our quick tag editor, and that's simply by pressing down your Ctrl and your T. When this comes up, you simply type span space class equals to quotation mark, then the class name that you want to give to that word. In this case, let us still give it a class of independent. That is done for that. We'll come to the second one, highlight it, go to the quick tag editor, Ctrl T, then type span space class equals to independent. Go to the third one, highlight it, the quick tag editor, Ctrl T, type span space class equals to, then the word independent, and that's it. We have added the class name independent 3 times on our page already, and that's how to add IDs and classes. Let us move to the next lesson and see how we can further style our page using CSS. But before we go, there's something I want us to take notice of. If we come to this our region, the div tag, we said earlier that the ID is identified with this word pound header or pound the div ID. Now let us see what we identify our classes with. If we go to our class independent, let us highlight on the word independent and come down here. You can see that we have span dot independent, which was the name we gave to this word. So to identify your class, you have dot the class name, while to identify your ID, you have pound sign the ID name. Now this is a simple way to differentiate between a class and ID. Anytime you see the word hash then a name, that tells you that it is an ID, and when you see the word dot and a name, it tells you that that word there is a class. Let us move to the next lesson.